We're going to talk over some things about the Constitution. And, the framers of the Constitution, it cannot be interpreted safely except by reference to the common law and to the British institutions as they were when this instrument was framed and adopted. The framers of our Constitution were born and brought up in an atmosphere of common law, and they thought about it and they spoke about it in the same vocabulary. Okay? Now, it's also, if you look at the Constitution, the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution ratifies and preserves for every citizen the right to keep and bear arms, and, moreover, not Congress or any other instrument of the federal government can infringe on that right. They are constitutionally barred from infringing upon that right. You look at the Second Amendment. Okay, is there anything after the word infringe, a subparagraph A, B, C, D, which would stipulate what would be an acceptable infringement? No. So all infringements is forbidden. And if they don't understand the word infringement, look it up in the Black's Law Dictionary. Period. According to the Constitution, they give the Congress enumerated powers, which limits them. Okay? You get down to where they stuck in the thing about commerce. The power given Congress to regulate commerce among the states could not have been a power to regulate anything that affects commerce, which is, in principle, everything, because that would have made it completely pointless and any limits imposed by the enumeration. Rather, the Commerce Clause was meant primarily to restrain state power, to ensure the free flow of goods and services among the states. Congress was given the power to regulate such commerce only to make it regular. These limitations are reinforced by the Necessary and Proper Clause, which limits the means available to Congress to those that are necessary only for executing the enumerated powers. That's all they're allowed to do with. Without such means, the enumerated powers could not be executed and proper for a government dedicated to liberty. Let's make it clear that the founders intended this doctrine of enumerated powers to be our principal defense against overbearing government. If there were no power to do it, the government could hardly abuse that power. That's why they put this in. After they wrote the Bill of Rights, it was added in 1791, they added that for greater caution, because no such bills could list all of our rights. And if you look under the 9th Amendment, it states, the enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed or disparaged other rights retained by the people. That tells you that, they are limited to what they can do, people. They only have certain powers, and writing firearm laws is not one of them. In the Federalist Papers, I'll zoom this. Number 22 and 42. That is the original intent of the Constitution. Not what Pelosi and the Democrats or any Republican is trying to say. The Commerce Clause is not put in there for their benefit. You have the God-given right to keep and bear arms. Our Declaration of Independence recognizes that our rights come from God and are unalienable. You cannot legislate a right out of existence. It's unconstitutional to take away those rights. And we have these rights long before the Constitution was even written. You have God-given rights. Remember that, people. Remember. You look up in Blackstone, He placed the right of arms among the absolute right of individuals at common law. These rights, which he saw as preserving to England its free government and to the Englishmen their liberties. Yet unquestionably what Blackstone was referring to was individual rights to have and use the arms for self-protection. He describes the right to bear arms as being for self-preservation and for defense, and a self-defense as being a primary law of nature, which cannot be taken away by the law of society. It means those laws that these Democrats and stuff are writing, they're meaningless. They have nothing to do with you. You have the natural right of resistance and self-preservation when the sanctions of society and law are found to be insufficient to restrain the violence of oppression. You know, in truth, anyone who believes it is wrong to arm himself against criminal violence shows contempt of God's gift of life. He does not properly value even himself. He does not live up to his responsibilities to his family and community, and proclaims himself mentally and morally deficient because he does not trust himself to behave responsible. Doesn't that sound like a lot of Democrats? Huh? I'll tell you something, people. According to your Constitution, there's nowhere in the Constitution that the government was granted authority to abridge, restrict, or infringe in any fashion whatsoever guns or ammunition. Thus, all restrictive laws made by Congress, all regulations made by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms are unconstitutional because they are outside the scope of powers granted to Congress and to the executive branch by our Constitution. Restriction of arms and ammunition is not one of the enumerated powers delegated to Congress or the executive branch. What Congress is trying to do, they are trying to appropriate state powers under the guise of regulating commerce. You can't do that. That goes against the Constitution. Another thing that they do, instead of doing their own legwork and checking into the Constitution, checking into the Federalist Papers, they rely on what other judges said about something. Now that's just another judge's opinion, which can be totally flawed. But they've got to check the original intent of what is going on. You can't go by what somebody else said. That's not the way it works. These judges can be flawed. And another thing it does, it makes those judges the law and not the Constitution. You've really got to watch your P's and Q's when you deal with these people. Do you think Nancy Pelosi and those people, I mean, if they even read the Constitution, how they interpret it in their minds? These people shouldn't be in Congress at all. They shouldn't be in the Senate. And if you don't understand the Constitution, you shouldn't be President of the United States either. So we've got to make these people understand we want the truth in dealing with firearm laws. Number one, you're not allowed to even pass one. They don't have the authority to do it. That's why back in 1934, they stuck it under the Internal Revenue Code. And they've been following the same line of agenda since then. We need real Supreme Court justices that will take the time to read the Federalist Papers and give us a ruling on what the Commerce Clause really means, what it was intended to do, not what they've made it out to be, how they've changed things around to their own kind of philosophy. That is not the way the Constitution was set up. It was set up to... anyway, it was set up. Yeah, anyway, they got to go back to the original intent of the Constitution. If they can't do that, then their opinions doesn't mean shit. Thanks for watching, people. Read your Constitution At first, if you don't understand it, read it again. The more you read it, the more you'll understand, and you'll come up with the same conclusions as I did. And to help you out, get one of these Black's Law dictionaries. They sell them at different bookstores and stuff like that. I got this in the 90s sometime. And make sure you read that Constitution. The more you read it, the more you're going to understand it. And that is one of your best defenses you could ever have. And let's get these anti-American, anti-gun people out of the Congress. And I don't care how you do it. But they have no business there making laws when they don't even understand it. Thank you.